call to order the Bristol, Tennessee City Council meeting of April 5, 2022. Mary Lee, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Towers.
Here.
Luttrell.
Here.
Turner.
Here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Here. I would like to welcome everyone and thank you for attending tonight's meeting. Your interest in city government is very appreciated. There are a number of opportunities to speak on matters of city business this evening. A sheet explaining those opportunities has been made available to you when entering the meeting room. As we go forward with tonight's agenda, I will note each time when public comment is welcome. In addition, a sign-up sheet has been provided as you enter City Council chambers for those individuals desiring to address City Council during the appearance of citizens section of our agenda. At this time, I would like to ask Chief Mike Carrier to lead us in our invocation. And following our invocation, I'd like to ask Vice Mayor Turner to introduce our special guest that will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Our most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, as we come before you tonight, we just come before you, Lord, with humble hearts, just thanking you for all of your goodness, thanking you for all of your mercy. And Lord, we thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, and we thank you, Lord, for his death, his burial, and his resurrection that we'll celebrate here Easter week just in a couple of weeks. We thank you, Lord, for what that represents. Tonight, Lord, as we come before you, we are thankful that we live in a great nation. We live in a place where we have freedoms, and we know, Lord, that those freedoms come with a price. And as we pledge to the flag here, just following this, Lord, help us to remember all those who have made the sacrifices and fought the battles to give us these freedoms. We are thankful, Lord, for them. We pray, dear God, for our military that are currently standing watch. We ask, Lord, for your hand of safety upon them. Just touch them in a special way. Tonight, Lord, as we come before you, we think about this great city of Bristol, Tennessee, a great place to live. And it truly is a great place not only to live, but a place to work. And I am thankful for that opportunity. And I pray, dear God, that you would be with our leaders tonight as they make decisions to move our city forward, that you would give them your wisdom. And, Lord, you would help them to make the decisions that will help Bristol to prosper. Tonight, Lord, as we come before you, we know that there are many that are less fortunate than we are. We know that there are many who are sick, and we just lift them up tonight. And I lift up particularly Sarah and just ask, Lord, that you would just work the healing process and pray that you would make your presence known in their life. And I pray all this in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Hayden Boer and his mother Morgan are going to come and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Good job.
That was excellent. Mr. Sora, do you have anything or any items to be added to tonight's agenda this evening?
No, Mayor, the agenda is complete.
We have seven proclamations on tonight's agenda. First, we have a proclamation designating April the 29th, 2022 as Arbor Day, Earth Day. I would like to ask Councilwoman Lee Powers to read the proclamation. And Mr. Jeremy Stout from the Nature Center, our Nature Center manager, will be with us this evening to address Council on the significance of Arbor Day and Earth Day.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper products, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas Arbor Day, Earth Day, is a unique celebration focusing not on the past but the future, and by planting this small tree, we affirm our faith in the future And whereas the city wishes to thank the tree board members for their efforts in helping to improve the quality of life in our city. Now, therefore, the mayor of the city of Bristol, Tennessee, does hereby proclaim April 29th, 2022 as Bristol Arbor Day, Earth Day in the city of Bristol, Tennessee, and urge all of our citizens to plant trees and commend them for their efforts in reforesting our city.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be able to stand up here and receive this award. This is a story that I tell often because I'm really proud of it, so I apologize if you've already heard it. But in 2012, the city commissioned a Canopy Study from the State of Tennessee Department of Forestry. That's where they go through data and satellite imagery and they look at a city's urban forest over time. And at that time, when we received that study, we learned that we were the first city in the state of Tennessee's history that the urban forester was aware of at that time that had not lost any canopy in the 20-year study period. It had actually gained canopy, which is nothing short of remarkable. So thank you for your continued commitment to Bristol's urban forest. I'd also like to invite you to our Arbor Day celebration this year at Haynesfield Elementary on April 29th. So look for an invite coming your way soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Next, we have a proclamation designating the week of April the 3rd through the 9th, 2022 as National Library Week in Bristol, Tennessee. I would like to ask Councilwoman Fire Robin to read the proclamation. And with us tonight, I believe, is Ms. Tanya Kistner, Bristol Public Library Executive Director, and Ms. Brenda Dunn, Director of Finance. And they'll address council on the significance of the National Library Week.
Thank you, and it's my pleasure to read this proclamation. Whereas libraries of all types are at the heart of cities, towns, schools, and campuses serving their communities, and whereas National Library Week is a national observance sponsored by the American Library Association and libraries across the country each April. It is a time to celebrate the contributions of our nation's libraries and library staff and promote library use and support. Whereas libraries support democracy and affect social change through a commitment to provide equitable access to information for all library users, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. And whereas libraries look beyond their traditional roles and provide transformative opportunities for education, employment, entrepreneurship, empowerment, and engagement, as well as new services that connect closely with patrons' needs. And whereas libraries transform lives through innovative educational resources and forward-thinking programming, and whereas libraries are ever evolving to best serve our communities and fulfill their role in leveling the playing field for all who seek information and access to technologies. And whereas libraries lead in working with diverse communities, including people of color, immigrants, and people with disabilities, offering services and educational resources that transform communities, open minds, and promote inclusion and diversity. Whereas libraries, librarians, library workers, library board members, volunteers, and supporters across America are celebrating National Library Week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor of Bristol, Tennessee claims April 3 through 9, 2022 as National Library Week. All residents are encouraged to visit their library, explore what is new at your library, and engage with a librarian. Because of you and our library leaders, libraries transform.
to say, whereas that was an awesome proclamation. Thank you so much. I want to thank Council, Mayor Luttrell, and Mr. Sora, and staff, and also Mr. Napier, who always gives us excellent advice and helps us out at the library. We are super excited to be here to accept this proclamation for National Library Week, especially on what today is National Library Workers' Day. So it's perfect and fitting. Also, thinking about libraries and what they do, everything that was in that proclamation is, I'm super proud to be a part of, but I would not be able to do it without the support of the city, the support of the volunteers, the support of the Library Foundation board members, the Library Board of Trustees, the Friends of the Library, and the volunteers. We couldn't do it without you guys, and without the leadership and community service that the Bristol City, Tennessee gives to the library. Also, I'm saying a lot, and I'm trying not to say too much, but I want to recognize Brenda Dunn, again, because it's National Library Workers' Day. Brenda has been committed to library work and the Bristol Public Library 50 years this December. So it's very fitting that she would be here with me to accept the proclamation, because she is kind of the Bristol Public Library. She can do anything there. She's been the library director. She's been technical services. She's been in every department. So we appreciate her, and I certainly appreciate you, Brenda. Thank you again to the city for helping us move forward with our mission, which is, well, let me remember what it is. Thank you. Expanding minds and building community. It's been a long day. And I think, is there anything else, anything you'd like to say, Brenda?
Just the fact that it feels like I just started working at the library yesterday. It's a really good place to work. Come on over and check it out.
So I'll add in, I serve currently on the library board, and I've been on it before, and I do appreciate both of you all. Tanya's brought a lot of energy. We had Amy Kamani was a great director. Tanya came in, and both just so focused on community work as well. Tanya and Brenda were today at the book bus celebration that our Bristol, Tennessee City Schools. It began with a partnership with the library, and Tanya got to come in and build on that. And so just really appreciate what our library offers, and we're lucky to have the building that we have, and we're lucky to have Avoca Branch also in Bristol, Tennessee, so really appreciate it. And the other is, I'll just make a plug, because at the book bus I found talking to a couple of people, did not know about the Tennessee Reads and the Libby program, that you can get Audible books, you can get books that you can read digitally that are phenomenal, because it's across the whole state of Tennessee that you get to choose from that library. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, check out their website, and if you need any help with access and figuring out how to do it, there are librarians who can help you do that. So anyway, so just wanted to put a plug in for that.
Thank you. And I know I forgot our mission for a hot second, but I don't want to forget our library staff. I also want to say, while I'm here, thank you to our library staff that help run the library. And also, it's incredible to be the director of a place, an institution that's the great equalizer for people when you walk in the door. So thank you for letting me do this job.
Next, we have a proclamation designating the month of April 2022 as Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month in Bristol, Tennessee. I would like to ask Vice Mayor Vince Turner to read the proclamation. And Ms. Sarah Phillips is here with us to address the significance of Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month.
Thank you. Whereas autism spectrum disorder, ASD, is a bioneurological developmental disorder that generally appears before age 3 and can cause social, communication, and behavioral difficulties. Autism is the fastest growing developmental disorder, yet most underfunded. Often, autistic individuals look like someone else, but may communicate, interact, behave, and learn in different ways from other people. The learning, thinking, and problem-solving abilities of people with autism can range from gifted to severely challenged. Some people with ASD need a significant amount of support to live their daily lives. Others need less. And whereas ASD now includes several conditions that were previously diagnosed separately: autism, pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified, PDD-NOS, and Asperger's syndrome. These conditions are now all known as autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. And whereas, according to the most recent data, ASD affects 1 in 44 children and is 4 times more common among boys, 1 in 27, than among girls, 1 in 116. ASD prevalence increased by 17.8 each year from 2009 to 2017, more than doubling over the past decade. This disorder impacts people of all races, ethnicities, and socioeconomic groups. And whereas many people with ASD often have difficulties with social, emotional, and communication skills, they may repeat certain behaviors and have difficulty changing their daily routine and activities. Many people with ASD have different ways of learning, focusing, and attention, and reacting to things. And whereas ASD generally appears before age 3, but can sometimes be detected as early as 18 months old or sooner. However, many children do not receive a formal diagnosis until they are much older. This delay means that children with ASD might not get the early and often critical help they need. And whereas research shows that early intervention treatment services can significantly improve a child's development. Early intervention services help children from birth to 3 years of age learn essential skills. Services can include speech, occupational, physical, and behavioral therapy. However, a child receiving a diagnosis after age 3 can also significantly benefit from these same therapy services to help with delays in talking, walking, interacting with others, and inability to control behaviors, including physical aggression and self-injurious behavior. And whereas all year, but most especially during the month of April, we strive to bring awareness, acceptance, education, inclusion, and self-determination to all, and that each individual with autism spectrum disorder is given a chance to achieve the highest possible quality of life. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor of the City of Bristol, Tennessee, does hereby proclaim April 2022 as Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month, and urge our citizens to help create awareness and acceptance for this disorder in our community.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor Turner and also City Council members. I really appreciate that, and I'm going to try really hard not to cry. It's hard when people are talking about something that affects your child and affects your family so significantly to not get emotional. Thank you so much. When people are inclusive and kind, that is a big deal to autistic people. And their families. So thank you so much for the proclamation. I really appreciate that. You would like for Mommy to rock you? Okay. Scribbled down just a few things really quickly because I knew I would have a little one on my arm, so I'll read quickly and then get to. You would like for mommy to sit in the chair and rock you? Okay, in just 1 second. I just said thank you so much for proclaiming April as Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month. As a mom of a 5-year-old little autistic boy, it's really hard to put into words the gratitude that comes. Would you like to get down on this? The gratitude that comes from things like this. I am a firm believer that awareness breeds education, and education breeds action, and action is what breeds hope. And so I think the more people become aware of things like autism and how different it looks, each individual with autism is as diverse as our fingerprints and snowflakes. And so it means a lot to parents like me of kiddos like mine when we have the community support and the willingness to bring something like autism to the forefront. So I'm grateful. And it's bedtime, so I'll end with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I guess I will add too, I guess, that I don't know how many people have noticed the blue lights downtown, but those were put up for Autism Awareness Month. Dr. Phillips and Sarah purchased the lights, and we got down, I guess, Wednesday and Thursday and put them up, and got the Bristol, Virginia side, I guess, was up on Friday. So that's why we have the blue lights on the poles downtown. So.
And I would just add, I think Vince is to be commended, Vice Mayor Turner. He has done so much to bring awareness to the autism of our young children, and I just really appreciate, I know it's near and dear to your heart. Henry is his godson, and so he has been with them every step of the way and has just done an outstanding job. So I think Vince is to be greatly commended for all that you've done.
Thank you.
It's hard to follow. Next, we have a proclamation designating the week of April the 10th through the 16th, 2022 as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Bristol, Tennessee. At this time, I will read this proclamation. I believe Ms. Crystal Key, our 911 Communications Manager, is here with us this evening to address council and to receive the proclamation. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services. And whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of the information obtained from the citizens who telephone the Bristol, Tennessee Emergency Communications Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them with information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators of the Bristol, Tennessee Police Department have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Therefore, be it resolved that I, the Mayor of Bristol, Tennessee, declares the week of April 10th through the 16th, 2022 to be National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Bristol, Tennessee, in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe.
just want to take a moment to thank City Council for your support in recognizing our telecommunicators. It is a very important job. It's a very hard job, and so I know that they all appreciate your support. Thank you.
And if you don't know, we have, of course, 911, but oftentimes when things are brought to our attention that appear to be unsafe, we have a non-emergent number that can be called to reach out for assistance. So we have a great, great department within our police department of telecommunicators.
Next, we have a proclamation designating April the 6th, 2022 as Start by Believing Day in Bristol, Tennessee. I would like to ask Councilwoman Lee Powers to read this proclamation. Ms. Brittany Fleener, Coordinated Community Response Specialist at the Branch Family House Justice Center, is here with us to address the significance of Start by Believing Day.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Fleener was with us to present a proposal to Council in support of the Branch House. Sadly, we have this facility that does an outstanding job. If you're not familiar with the Branch House, listen closely. Whereas the City of Bristol, Tennessee shares a critical concern for victims of sexual violence and a desire to support their needs for justice and healing. And whereas in the year 2021 there were 33 reported sexual assaults in the City of Bristol, Tennessee, and Branch House Family Justice Center served the needs of 68 sexual assault victims in and around Sullivan County. And whereas the sexual assault forensic exam program at Branch House Family Justice Center has only been in operation since March of 2020 and has already performed 27 forensic exams. And whereas current estimates suggest as few as 1 in 5 sexual assaults will be reported to law enforcement, and less than 3% will result in the conviction and incarceration of the perpetrator. And whereas research documents that victims are far more likely to disclose their sexual assault to a friend or family member. And when these loved ones respond with doubt, shame, or blame, victims suffer additional negative effects on their physical and psychological well-being. And whereas the Start by Believing public awareness campaign, a program of End Violence Against Women International, is designed to improve the responses of friends, family members, and community professionals so they can help victims to access supportive resources and engage the criminal justice system. Now therefore be it resolved that the Mayor of the City of Bristol, Tennessee does hereby proclaim April 6th of 2022 as Start by Believing Day in support of the public awareness campaign throughout the City of Bristol, Tennessee. And as a footnote, we're incredibly fortunate, though sad as it may be, to have the Branch House in our community. Ms. Fleener.
Thank you so much for that, Councilwoman Powers, Mayor Luttrell, and City Council. It is an honor to be here to accept this proclamation. Advocating for victims is a value that was instilled in me very early on in my life, and it is an honor, and I'm so proud to live in a city and to raise my family in a city that places value on empowering and supporting victims of interpersonal violence. I would also like to thank the Bristol, Tennessee Police Department for working collaboratively with Branch House since the very beginning. Their professionalism and compassion that they use when they're working with victims, especially of sexual violence, makes all the difference, and we appreciate them more than they know. And it truly takes a community working together to end the cycle of abuse. And Bristol has really been progressive in this and is setting an example for others to follow. So thank you so much.
Next, we have a proclamation designating the month of April 2022 as Buckle Up for Life Distracted Driving Month in Bristol, Tennessee. I would like to ask Councilman Mark Hutton to read the proclamation, and Police Lieutenant Greg Brown is with us to address the significance of the Buckle Up for Life Distracted Driving Month.
Whereas more than 700 injury crashes involve distracted driving on an average day, and the economic toll of all motor vehicle crashes in the U.S. annually exceeds $400 billion. And whereas talking on a mobile phone, even in hands-free mode, texting, programming your dashboard, infotainment system, or GPS device can divert your attention away from driving and result in physical or cognitive distraction. And whereas Bristol residents and all Americans deserve to live in communities that promote safe driving behaviors and healthy lifestyles. And whereas preventing distracted driving injuries and deaths requires the cooperation of all levels of government, employers, and the general public. And whereas the National Safety Council and Buckle Up for Life, Safe Kids Coalition, Ballot Health, and others promote policies, practices, and procedures leading to increased safety, protection, and health in business and industry, in schools and colleges, on roads and highways, and in homes and communities. And whereas the National Safety Council and supporters in 2022 will provide this nation with a month-long distracted driving public education campaign. And whereas spring is a time when people begin to log more miles on the road, and it is imperative to focus attention on motor vehicle injury risks and preventions. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor of the City of Bristol, Tennessee, does hereby proclaim Bristol's support of Distracted Driving Awareness Month in April 2022, and strongly urges the citizens and businesses of Bristol to observe Distracted Driving Awareness Month by practice safe driving behaviors and pledging to drive distraction-free.
Thank you, Councilman Hutton and Mayor Luttrell and City Council. Thank you very much. With your support and the combined efforts of our officers, we will hopefully keep everybody safe and increase our patrols and make people aware that distracted driving causes injuries. And we are firmly committed to keeping our citizens safe. So thank you so much for your support, and we are blessed to have the support of the community. Thank you.
Next, we have a proclamation designating the month of April 2022 as Fair Housing Month in Bristol, Tennessee. I would like to ask Councilwoman Margaret Firerobin to read the proclamation, and Mr. Steve Willinger, Community Development Advisory Committee Chair, is in attendance to accept the proclamation and will speak to the significance of Fair Housing Month.
Thank you. Whereas April 2022 marks the 54th anniversary of the enactment of the Fair Housing Act, and whereas legislation passed by Congress in 1968 seeks to eliminate discrimination in opportunities and to affirmatively make housing choices available for all Americans. And whereas the ongoing efforts to ensure equal housing opportunities for all citizens is not the exclusive role of the federal government, but also requires state and local government efforts to combat housing discrimination as well. And whereas the City of Bristol, Tennessee utilizes the Department of Development Services to implement an effective and responsible fair housing program. And whereas it is the intent of this City Council to encourage the unified efforts of federal, state, and local governments in promoting housing opportunities for all Americans. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor of the City of Bristol, Tennessee does hereby proclaim April 2022 as Fair Housing Month, this 5th day of April. Thank you.
Thank you, City of Bristol, for this proclamation. Of all the people on earth, the CDAC could have chosen, they selected a realtor. Fair housing is an everyday part of my life, and there is, I had to write this down, home ownership is the American dream, and it's our job to do everything humanly possible to keep that dream alive to everybody. And it's a big deal to have someone get their first home, and it truly is the beginning of building wealth in this country. Real estate has done that. But reaching out, being diverse, to educate and teach and keep the awareness high so that maybe we spark interest where it hasn't been before. So this Fair Housing for the Month, let's do a lot of good things to make that dream come available to others. Thank you again.
We don't have any presentations on tonight's agenda, so we'll move on to public hearings. The public hearing is hereby open to receive the one-year report on the status of the annexation plan of services for property located at 2467 Weaver Pike. Mr. Sawyer, would you please summarize this matter for the public?
Yes, Mayor. 1 year ago, as you indicated, the city annexed 2467 Weaver Pike, and this was an owner-initiated annexation. By statute, we're required at 6-month intervals to brief council and the public regarding the implementation of the annexation plan of services, and also let you know when those plan of services have been completed. So Sheriff Young will be with us, will be speaking momentarily. She's our Director of Community Development Planning, and she'll update you on the status of the plan of services. Sheriff?
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. Good evening, Mayor Luttrell, City Council members. Tonight, as Mr. Sawyer stated in his introduction, we're here just for the 1-year point with this annexation. We are required by Tennessee Code Annotated to hold a public hearing on the progress report at 6 months and 1 year for an annexation. So as Mr. Sawyer stated, this was owner initiated by the owners of this property, Joshua and Rebecca Roberts. You can see on the screen the parcel that was annexed is highlighted in yellow or colored in yellow. And what we just need to do tonight to close out the annexation process is to have a 1-year public hearing on the plan of services that was approved by City Council last April. So there were most city services that were effective immediately upon the annexation. So you can see here in the list everything that was available immediately to this property. So police, fire, refuse collection, access to recreational facilities, city schools, planning services, water service through the South Fork Utility District, electric service through BTES, and street maintenance. The one short-term item to address was the extension of public sanitary sewer service, and that was required within 1 year. That was complete in January. Just as a reminder, the council and school district here is the South Council District and the South School District that was available upon annexation. And the zoning that was approved for this parcel was R1A low density single family district. So the good news here is that the plan of services has been executed and complete. So with that, we can have the public hearing to close out the annexation process.
Okay. Would anyone in the audience like to address council on this matter? If so, please come to the podium and state your name and address before making your comments. Seeing none, this public hearing is hereby closed. This brings us to the appearance of citizens section of our agenda. This section provides an opportunity for the public to address City Council on any matter that is not on a printed agenda for formal consideration. Comments are limited to matters of city business only. A response will not likely be made at this time. In most cases, neither the City Council nor the City Manager will be prepared to effectively respond to the concern. The City Manager will look into the matter and report back to City Council, or, as appropriate, have staff meet with you in an effort to satisfy your concern. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual and are not transferable to other individuals. Groups are encouraged to select a spokesperson to represent them. I've been provided the list of individuals desiring to address City Council this evening. So as to read your name, would you please come to the podium? First, I have Mr. Rick Bott. Rick, if you would, please tell us your address.
It's Rick Bott, 3120 Highway 11W, Blumpville, Tennessee. Okay. Appreciate it, Mr. Mayor, City Council, staff that's present. Since I only have 3 minutes, I'm going to limit my comments because it's quite a lengthy discussion topic. It's regarding property damage as a result of the city water main adjacent to my property. I'll go through a timeline of occurrences to kind of give you an overview. And then at the end of this, my request is fairly simple: to appoint a staff, a committee to help resolve the property damages that have occurred. December of 2019, I purchased some property, went to closing January 2020, applied for a water permit, granted, water meter was installed in March timeframe of 2020. In April of 2020, I notified Tennessee Department of Transportation of a pothole that was on Highway 11W, and there was water present inside the pothole. They came out, repaired the pothole, some time lapsed since then, and then July of 2021, TDOT was dispatched again as a result of the pothole opening up. This time you could see the depth of the pothole was probably greater than 6 feet. There were water present. It was reported to the supervisory staff in Johnson City, to TDOT, who has provided me copies of the report of the service call that was made and the repairs that were done. In fall of 2021, we started to notice some ponding on the property, probably an area of 2 acres or more that was underwater by a foot or so. And I contacted Tennessee Department of Transportation, Nashville, and I explained to them what appeared to be a problem. They sent out a licensed geotech professional engineer, did a site visit. In his determination, the property damage was not a natural occurrence. At that time, we had no way of knowing that the water main was causing the problem. The engineer recommended going ahead and repairing the cavity that was opened up in my front yard. We backfilled it, and while backfilling it, the truck and trailer almost caved in as a result of the water main and the amount of the erosion had occurred to the subsurface in the affected area. The water department was notified of the water main rupture. They came out and did a repair. The following day, another cavity opened up, same situation. It was a matter of the amount of erosion had occurred over a 1.5 or 2 year period. City manager has visited with me. Am I on 3 minutes already?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I apologize. Well, at the end of the day, I've written a letter to the city requesting some help with geotechnical testing to do a resistivity test to try to figure out the extent of the damage. And the underlying concern is whether or not I have any structural concerns with my property and my house. So my request to the council is help me resolve. Thank you.
Next, we have Ronnie Barger. I may have it wrong.
Ronnie Barger, 649 J.H. Falver Road, Blumpville, Tennessee. I was going to speak for Rick, My property adjoins Rick's property. Last summer, mid-August, I noticed the water down there, and I've lived on this property all my life. I've never seen the water before ponding up that he was talking about. And I just wanted to verify that the water was there. And when they fixed the water main in January, mid-January, the water went away within like 2 days' time. So I know that water come from the water main because it had never been there before over years and years. I've been there on the farm. But that's just what I want to say. I just want to say that I know it was there because of that.
Next, we have John Link.
Hi, John Link, 1100 Georgia Avenue, Bristol, Tennessee. If I seem a little groggy, I've had 3 nights of landfill emissions, but I'm not here for that tonight. I'm actually here because I had heard that the city had closed the skate park and that they're looking at putting in a new one somewhere. As a guy who grew up in New Jersey, as an old skateboarder and BMX biker, I wish I had a place. I mean, I just would drive in the streets and we'd get chased off and run after. So I was so excited when Mr. Napier and Chief Austin and I think Mike Yanero and City Council all at the time put in a park. I think about that time, it was shortly after it opened, my son got his permit and off to the skate park. You know, as I actually looked at homes, I grew up on a home that had a driveway that went down to a main street. When I came to Bristol and we looked at homes, I looked for driveways that went down toward the house. You had to go up to the street so my kids could ride their bikes and skateboards and do the things I used to do. So I've passed that park hundreds of times. I've never seen any trouble going on at that park. So as the city considers doing, you have an opportunity here. You know, these 2 young folks that were sitting up here earlier and doing the pledge and all, these are the people that are going to be sitting in these seats one day. We got to invest in them. Not everybody is a tennis player, football, basketball, pickleball player. There's a whole subset of us guys who were skateboarders and like to ride our bikes. Not troublemakers. They just want a place to practice their skills and have fun. As the city considers looking at spacing and all, I'd like to consider a few things. Handicap accessibility. Councilwoman Robin challenged me with coming up ways for old handicap guys like myself to skateboard, so I'll work on that. But you know, ADA compliance and maybe a shelter area where youth organizations like Sullivan County Anti-Drug Coalition, maybe the SROs, could meet with students at that park, you know, where it'd just be another avenue. These kids need a place. Not everyone has a couple of bucks to go to Steele's Creek and to go through the gates. It might as well be $20 or $200 to them. They just need a place to have fun and do their thing. Time's up. Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you.
Next, we have Jim Jordan.
My name is Jim Jordan. My wife and I live at 232 Colony Drive, Steel Creek Colony, where we've lived for the past 33 years. Thank you, Mayor Luttrell, Vice Mayor Turner, Councilwomen Robin and Powers, and Councilman Hutton for your service in making Bristol a good place to live. Thank you, Terry Napier, for your love and service to Still Creek Park and all city parks in Bristol, Tennessee. Thank you all for the opportunity to address you concerning the future of Still Creek Golf Course. I am thankful to hear that the council is backing away from the repurposing of the golf course to an RV and tent campground. I've talked with several property owners in Still Creek Colony, and all are opposed to a campground there. It's not that we're opposed to an upscale campground, just not in a residential area. The aesthetic value of having the green space of the golf course is much preferred to the asphalt, rock, concrete for roads, and the electrical, water, sewer lines, the bathhouses, security lights, and other necessities for camping, which would detract from the natural park setting and the surrounding residential area. Another reason we are opposed is the possibility of increased drug and human trafficking, which would create a security risk to both kids at the park and our neighborhood. I've stated what we are against. Now allow me to tell you what we're for. We agree with your plans to upgrade the hiking and biking trails. We are also for new paving for the park road and parking areas and the trail around the lake. We would also like to see new playground equipment to replace the older equipment, which has some dangerous metal to little kids. We are for those things that are in the best interest of all the residents of Bristol, as I know that you are. We are also for making visitors feel welcome at Still Creek Park with a variety of activities, including a golf course and a driving range. As to the Still Creek Golf Course, I and many other residents are for keeping it open. The city subsidizes the financial losses of operating the golf course and has stated that it is not attempting to make a profit. The city also subsidizes all the parks and does not charge residents a fee to use the Slater Center or to play tennis, pickleball, basketball, disc golf, and other activities. There is a fee to play the golf course and the driving range. However, it is much more affordable than member-only and other courses in the area. This gives both seniors and youth a low-cost place to play. The 9-hole course can be played in half the time it takes to play the courses in our area, which are 18 holes. These reasons, along with the relaxed atmosphere of the park golf course and driving range, make it a great place for beginners, the youth of the first tee, seniors, and families to play and enjoy. We, the golfers and future golfers of Bristol and the area, ask you to keep the golf course and driving range open for play at Still Creek Park. Thank you.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Val Kosmitter. If I said that incorrectly.
Perfect, Mr. Mayor. I'm Val Kosmitter, 19 Ashworth Court in Johnson City. I'm here representing the Boone Lake Association. I last appeared before your group on October 5 of 2021 to speak on the issue of using a small portion of the TVA economic impact payments created by the Boone Dam Repair Project to fund a portion of a trash skimmer to be used on the Holston arm of Boone Lake. You may recall that we have a commitment for 75% of the funding and have asked Bristol, Tennessee to fund the last portion of that project. At that time, you requested that we perform a financial audit, which has now been satisfactorily completed and shared with you. In the 2 years or so we have been working on this project, the cost has risen, and the new request for figuring is $36,250, which represents the final splitting of an increase between Bristol and Kingsport. We've worked with our supplier to mitigate the cost of labor and materials as much as is reasonable. For our own organization, a challenge of which I'm sure you're very much aware, our own labor costs have risen about 30% between the last couple of years and 2022. Adding $10,000 to a $125,000 project we think is quite fair. It is my understanding that our request has been well heard through our many communications, and the final consideration of this request, which distinguishes itself from other not-for-profit requests, is scheduled for April 26. I'm here this evening to ensure that our voice is heard and that our project is understood both from a cost and a funding perspective. Once again, the total cost of the project is $135,000, of which we are asking Bristol to provide $36,250 from the approximately $500,000 which Bristol has received thus far from payments which Bristol City received and additional payments which you will receive in the next couple of years. So thank you for your consideration of this important project. It's a great regional opportunity. If you have any questions, I'm certainly available. Thank you very much. I did drop off a couple of pictures. One is of a trash slick that's just down from where Beaver Creek enters Boone Lake, and the other one is a rescue project, if you will, that we're working on. Trees, logs, all sorts of junk. Just gives you an idea of what's out there and what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Mayor Luttrell has those, or maybe he's passed them along. So thank you very much.
Next, we have George Link.
George Link, 307 Rutledge Street, Bristol, Tennessee, 37620. I'm sure all of you heard the collective howl from the community whenever the article came out about the skate park, because I about flipped my table and my daughter was excited, and the phone calls I know went flying to you all from skaters across the community. I just want to introduce myself in this capacity to you. A lot of people don't know this. I grew up in the skate park there behind Vance Middle. Had a lot of friends from there, been active with that skate park on and off through when I was a teenager until it was taken down. And most people don't know this. My master's is in engineering, but my thesis was actually developing an entire manufacturing process from raw material to equipment to finished product, making skateboards. And that's how I got my affiliation with the Tony Hawk Foundation, which is now known as the Skate Park Foundation. And we have a number of resources that I would like to share with Mr. Napier and share with you all. They're very fun reads. Yes, it's 90 pages, but you can actually skip about 25 of them because I'll be sharing them with skaters and community. The first 25 pages are how to work with your city government. So I'm trying to facilitate a forum with our alternative sports partakers in the community to where we can have an open dialogue. Tony Hawk Foundation gives a lot of great things. Like, for a lot of people, it's their first interaction with city government. It also gives the framework for how to have a positive interaction with your police department preemptively before opening, how to work with your Parks and Rec director, and how to make it a fun and back and forth conversation. So I would hope you consider that. I'll be emailing that to all y'all tonight, and I actually made a Facebook page. If you're active on Facebook, it's called Skate Bristol, and just a nice little logo. We're not going to try and be too rowdy and ruckus. I know with the counterculture and vagrancy sometimes could still be strong in the culture, but most of us have grown up and had children of our own, and we want them to be a little bit better than we are. So thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else in the audience want to speak? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on. We have appointments to be made to 3 boards this evening. First, we have 2 appointments to be made to the Bristol Housing Board. The appointments will serve a 5-year term ending March 31, 2027. The candidates are Jeffrey Huff and Steve Willinger. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of the candidates?
I'll speak for Steve Willinger, who's here tonight. And Steve, as you know, serves on our Community Development Advisory Board. And I think for probably, how long, 4 years, 3 years? And I think he has probably learned a whole lot with that. It also is nice to have that overlap with with some members who go back and forth since those complement each other for boards. So anyway, also Steve has been active with United Way's evaluations and allocations and has gotten to know some of our community organizations that work with housing as well. So anyway, highly recommend him.
Anyone else?
Okay. Fire Robin votes for Huff and Willinger. Hutton votes for Huff and Willinger. Luttrell votes for Huff and Willinger. Turner votes for Huff and Willinger. And Powers votes for Huff and Willinger.
Congratulations.
Next, we have one appointment to be made to the Health, Education, and Facilities Board. The candidate will fulfill an unexpired term of office ending June 30, 2023. The candidate is Mr. Barry Hopper. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of Mr. Hopper?
I will. I've known Barry for the better part of 40 years, and he has served the community in several capacities, and I'm sure that he would do a great job in this capacity as well. So I fully support Barry in his endeavor.
Ditto. Fire Robin votes for Hopper. Luttrell votes for Hopper. Turner votes for Hopper. Powers votes for Hopper. And Hutton votes for Hopper.
Next, we have one appointment to be made to the Sullivan County Board of Equalization. The term of the appointment will be for a period of 2 years ending April 30, 2024. The candidate is David Warren. Would anybody like to speak on behalf of the candidate?
I can speak on behalf. I think this is his second term, or he might have filled a term. But David Warren serves as a CPA in our community. He does a lot of nonprofit accounting. And we appreciate folks who serve on all our boards and commission, and the equalization has to look at our different property tax appeals, et cetera. So I appreciate his ability to do that.
Okay, Fire Robin votes for Warren. Luttrell votes for Warren. Excuse me, Powers votes for Warren. Turner votes for Warren, and Hutton votes for Warren.
Okay, we have two ordinance for consideration at first reading this evening. First item is the first reading ordinance 22-2, amending Chapter 2 of the zoning ordinance as it relates to special use permits. Mr. Sawyer, would you please summarize ordinance 22-2?
Yes, Mayor. Ordinance 22-2 and 22-3, which will follow this as an agenda item, are both text amendments to our zoning ordinance. They are somewhat related and were the subject of considerable discussion at the March 22nd work session. Ordinance 22-2 deals with special use permits and amending the language in Section 217 of Chapter 2 to prohibit the applicant of a denied special use permit from reapplying for a special permit for a special use permit on the same project on the same piece of property. This will be considered on first reading this evening. It will be submitted to the Planning Commission at their April 18th meeting, and they'll be asked to make a recommendation. That is if you approve it on first reading. If you approve it on first reading, there'll also be a public hearing and second reading scheduled at the May 3rd meeting. Sheriff, do you have, this is a fairly simple text amendment. Do you want to go ahead and walk them through the proposed language?
Yes, sir. So I have just one simple slide on this matter. It's hard to imagine doing this without a bunch of pictures and maps. But what you all have in your package to consider for first reading is the proposed language on the screen here. So it adds an item 13 to our special use permit section of the ordinance. And it basically just states if an application for a special use permit is denied, the applicant may not submit a new application for a special use permit for the same project on the same property until the passage of 180 days from the date of the denial of the original special use permit. So this would add that limitation on frequency. If you recall, it was about this time last year that the Planning Commission added the sunset provision. So if a special use permit was approved and not acted on in a certain window of time, then it would no longer be valid. So this just adds a new item that would say that if a special use permit is denied by the Planning Commission, then you could not reapply for the same project on the same parcel within 180 days.
Okay, does any member of council have a question for staff? Is there a motion to take action on this item?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Would any member of council like to discuss ordinance 22-2? Would anyone in the audience like to address council on this matter? I believe we're ready for a vote. Mary Lee, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 The next item on the agenda is the reading of ordinance 22-3, amending Chapter 4 and Chapter 5 of the zoning ordinance as it relates to storage unit facilities. Mr. Soar, would you please summarize ordinance 22-3?
Yes, Mayor. This item also was brought forward in the March 22nd work session, and again somewhat related to the 22-2. But this deals with, as council is aware, special use permits are allowed in the B3 for storage facilities. And the B3 zone is a lot of our commercial districts, especially our major corridors, which I think prompted council to have some concerns regarding that as a special use permit privilege under the B3 zone. So council has requested us look at potentially removing the special use permits by amending Chapter 4 and assigning the use for storage facilities by right in an M1 or M2 district. Again, much like Ordinance 22-2, this matter will be considered by the Planning Commission if approved by council on first reading tonight at their April meeting, in which they will make a recommendation for council consideration. We'll bring that back to you during our April 26th work session. Again, if approved tonight, there'll be a public hearing and a second reading considered at our May 3rd meeting. And with that, Sheriff Young will walk you through the proposed language, as well as illustrate to you the location of the M1 and M2 districts.
Thank you. So the proposed language in your packet tonight, it's pretty simple in that it deletes the warehouses item from the B3 zone. So it's the NAICS code 531130. The B3 zone is the only place where currently you could have a storage unit facility, and that is by special use permit. And the ordinance now, as it's written, does not distinguish between what kind of storage unit facility. So it doesn't specify indoor, outdoor. It just simply lists it by warehouse, which is the NAICS code refers to the storage unit facility. So the ordinance proposed would remove the item from the B3 zone as a special use permit item. So it would be entirely removed from the B3 zone, and it would add it as a permitted use in both the M1 district and the M2 district. So those are the light industrial business zone district and the general industrial zone district. And I do have a few maps on this one for you, and these were included in your package. But I just wanted to show, and we didn't have this information when council discussed this in a work session, that there are some of these areas that you'll look at and say, well, that makes sense. There is M1 and M2 zones in this location, but I just wanted to point out there are a couple of outliers here in the city. So where we are right now, this is Pinnacle Parkway right here. So actually the businesses here located across from the Pinnacle Parkway entrance are actually zoned M1. You have, of course, the quarry here, which makes sense that it would be zoned M2. So those are two M1 and M2 zones that are out on 11W. This is downtown, so downtown here. This is the bridge. So you can see going underneath the bridge here and then along the railroad tracks, you have some M1 and M2 zones present in this area. This is going out Highway 394, so here you have Partnership Park and the Bristol Business Park here, so those make sense as M2. And then this is Highway 421, so you have the Bristol Industrial Park here, so you have some M1 along the Highway 421 here, and you have business zone in here, all this is M2. So that one you might have guessed is out there. And then here, this is coming, again, down the railroad track. So this is the kind of older industrial area along the railroad tracks here coming out of downtown. So that again, M1, M2 here makes some sense. But then there's a couple additional parcels, and that's what I just wanted to call your attention to. Some extra parcels that we have in town that are zoned M1 and M2 that aren't really part of any kind of a district or an industrial area. You have the Exide building and fire station number 4 on Exide Drive that are zoned M1. You have the the northwest corner of Bluff City Highway and Lavender Lane, so the location of the pharmacy actually has an M1 zone on it. On West State Street, and I do have a map here, this is Acre Funeral Home right here, just to orient you. There are several parcels here that have the B3 zone on the front part of the parcels, but on the back they have M1. So there is some M1 along West State Street. The south building at Bristol Motor Speedway and the parcel adjacent to the south are both zoned M1. Godsey Supply behind Lowe's on the Parkway is zoned M1. The Bachman Valve building, so the parcel in between McDonald's and Bojangles on the Parkway, the large brown metal building, that's got an M zone on it. And then there are two parcels it shows here on Georgia and Delaney Street. So this is the one on Georgia Avenue, and this is East Hill Cemetery right here. So here's East State, and then Georgia goes down this side of the cemetery. So those parcels right there on the backside of Line Power are zoned industrial. Then there's a little parcel here on Delaney that are zoned M1. So just as we dove into this and started doing the due diligence behind where the M1 and M2 are in the city, just wanted to provide some locations to show you all what parcels could be impacted with the change in the zoning district. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or skip back to different maps or provide any information I can.
I mean, there's a lot, I see, there's more than what I thought, but if you're comparing this to where it is now, there is way more within the city. And, you know, if you look, even the picture at the top, those are buildings, and I know something that we had talked about of, I think it's Johnson City or Kingsport has for storage units. If it's an existing building, then you can repurpose that building for that. And that would kind of go along the same things. And I guess we can, if we decided to, if we did any changes later down the road of an existing building, then we can go back and relook at this, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. This brings a little different light that we need to do some more digging on this one.
Yeah.
So it looks to me like that this highlights maybe some areas that we need to look at rezoning that were industrial from many, many, many years ago, and that whatever is on there would be grandfathered in. But that we may want to relook at them and also look at our comprehensive plan. For example, Volunteer Parkway in between fast food restaurants, et cetera, that maybe manufacturing isn't the best zoning to have. So I think this highlights some of those that we perhaps need to continue looking at to see what else what we might need to look at for rezoning. And we can have city-initiated rezoning, correct?
That's correct.
I think one thing that we need to always consider is that, to your point, is that zoning is one of those things that's fluid, that as properties change, as uses change around a certain area, we need to, and I think you do a good job of this, is to look at the zonings that we have, and are they still as they should be? You know, things evolve, things change, and I think, you know, when you talk about the Bachman Valve building, that building has been there forever. And, you know, could it be repurposed to something else? Perhaps. But I think to continue to look, as the mayor said, and Margaret, to do a deeper dive to be sure that we have our zonings appropriate as more and more interest is shown in our community for building and construction.
I think this is a good start, though.
Yeah, I do too. It's a good
really
first
good
step.
start.
But again, I think it opens up, or opened my eyes up to start thinking differently on some other things. Okay. Any other comments for staff?
Motion to approve.
We got a motion? Second. We got a second? Would any member of council like to discuss ordinance 22-3? Would anyone in the audience like to address council on this matter? Mary Lee, I believe we're ready for a vote.
Powers? Yes.
Luttrell?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Yes.
This brings us to the consent agenda. Mr. Soar, would you please read the items on tonight's consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor, they include the minutes from the March 8th, 2022 council meeting, the March 10th, 2022 city council called work session, the March 21st, 2022 city council called work session, and the March 22nd, 2022 city council work session. Resolution 2224, awarding a bid for pavement markings for King College Road and East Cedar Street. Resolution 2225, awarding a bid for purchase of utility terrain vehicle for Police Department. Resolution 2226, awarding a contract for financial auditing services. Resolution 2227, awarding a bid for tractor-mounted tack distributor. Resolution 2228, approving an addendum to the Administrative Services Agreement with RX Benefits, Inc., and Resolution 2229, authorizing payment of Troutman Pepper Hamilton Sanders LLP for legal fees.
Okay, would any member of council like any item to be removed from the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the items included in the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, Mary Lee, please call the roll.
Powers?
Yes.
Luttrell?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Yes.
This takes us to our city manager's report.
Okay. All right, Mayor, I would like to remind council of a called work session on Tuesday, April 12th at 11 a.m. And the purpose is to hear a proposal for a regional economic development organization. This will take place in our annex conference room. Then our regular work session on Tuesday, April 26th will commence at 10 a.m. And this is the work session. This work session will focus on our fiscal 2023 budget, along with some additional items. But as council is aware, the bulk of that day is committed to the presentation of the 2023 budget, in which you will consider a number of items integral to completing that budget. Also remind everyone of the Penny's Truck Race on dirt at BMS on April 16th, and then followed on Sunday, April 18th, by the Food City Dirt Race. The excitement running under the lights on dirt at Bristol Motor Speedway. Also, would like to speak of the Easter celebration that will also be held at Bristol Motor Speedway at 4 p.m. that Sunday afternoon. Also, to note to council that significant work is underway along the East Cedar Street reconstruction, and certainly we've got a number of detours there. Work is progressing fairly quickly between Florida and Virginia Avenue. Once that concludes, then it'll move from Virginia Avenue east to Fifth Street. Also, we're doing we have commenced our annual street repaving efforts. Currently, we're east of here on East State Street as well as King College Road. There's both milling and paving involved with those efforts. Also, repairs are underway at the Shelby Street parking lot, where we've had some significant settlement in the center line concrete median area there, so that is underway. Along with the general spring cleanup that we do, and we typically tie these two events to race events when we invite a number of our closest friends and relatives in for a little weekend racing. But this is the time of year that we come out of the winter and we do annual replanting, remulching, restriping along our commercial corridors in advance of company coming to town.
Dr. Tudor, my apologies. I jumped over you there. So you're next.
Sometimes it's good to be forgotten, so that's okay. I would have just slipped out with no notice.
You're not getting off that easy.
Well, I do want to take a moment to thank you all for your participation in our activities in recent weeks. Thank you for your appearance. Excuse me. We've had a lot going on just in the past few weeks, and we have a lot to celebrate in our school district. Obviously, we've mentioned the book bus. Thank you for those of you who could join us for that today. That's an exciting adventure for us. We heard today that well over 700 of our families have already benefited from that service, and now we have a beautifully wrapped bus that will be retrofitted with book carts and an awning and air conditioning, as I heard, which is a plus in the middle of June and July when that bus delivers books to our kiddos. So we're very proud of that and certainly appreciative of the partnership with the Bristol Public Library in making that happen for our kids, and the fact that they get to keep books, which is just amazing. We hope their home libraries are growing every year. In addition to that, we've recently been named a model district, a Reading 360 district, which is a state designation for our work in early literacy. Our work with career technical education continues. Dr. Hutton was able to see the renovations underway at the Friendship Career Center, and the Viking Academy is hopefully going to move out there in August, which is an exciting venture. From those announcements, we've already received some traction and lots of community partners who want to join us in that endeavor and support our students. So great things happening there and partnering kids, which is really supporting economic development. Those are the students who are going to stay in our community. They're not going to go off to college and leave. They're going to be our workforce. So that's exciting that we're preparing them for that. If you've passed Tennessee Middle School lately, we are working on a parking lot. We also are working on a new football field and track, and we'll have a new field house. And we are hoping to be able to fit a little bit of a infield baseball practice facility up there so that we can get on a practice field a lot sooner than what we've been able to do in recent years. We have a new updated Viking Hall gym floor, so if you've seen that on social media, a new paint scheme, it's really gorgeous. I invite you to come see that anytime you're able to. We also announced this afternoon that Barry Wade was recognized for Tennessee Tennessee Athletic Coach of the Year. He just got that award last night. He nominated Mitch Walters for a Distinguished Service Award for the East Zone of Tennessee. So both of them received that recognition last night. They're 2 of 7 individuals in the state who received those recognitions. So we just received word that that was public last night, so I'd like to call attention to that. And we have a football coach, so that's really important in Bristol. So we're excited about that. And then finally, we're in the home stretch to the end of the school year, so we've survived another school year. Things are going well right now, knock on wood. We are good with COVID, and we're really looking forward to the end of the school year, Testing is underway, those sorts of things. But we intend to have our the second annual Teacher Appreciation or Staff Appreciation Initiative. And so we are just now seeking sponsors and donors for awards and recognitions for our staff. During the month of May, we'll do 3 weeks of the same thing that we did last year, doing a weekly drawing and calling out names and recognizing our staff for their efforts this week or this school year. So if you have donations you'd like to give, in fact, I think I overheard the city has already donated something. So thank you for the city staff for sharing your gems with us. But if you have business owners or folks that you think we should reach out to, we appreciate our community partners and certainly want to recognize our staff for their hard work this year. And so we'll be doing that during the month of May for staff appreciation. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have if you have any.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about this new coach.
This new coach is actually a Viking.
Oh, yeah.
He actually grew up in Bristol. He went to Fairmount and then, of course, on to Vance in Tennessee High School. He played football for the Vikings during the late 1990s and early 2000s. I think he graduated in 2001. He was quarterback and went on to Emory and Henry College and played football there. He's done some coaching stints elsewhere and has been back with us in Bristol for the past 3 years now. Maybe this is his third season. So he's homegrown, and I challenge you to find somebody more passionate about Viking football than Coach Holt. We are very excited to have him.
Awesome.
Thank you for asking.
Absolutely.
Okay, city council comments.
I can start. I only have a couple. I just wanted to, well, we always want to thank our staff and all the work that they do. And I'm looking now at Holly with knowing budgeting season is almost always here in one way or another. But anyway, thanks to everybody. I just wanted to note with our, I've been learning a little bit more about fair housing. So with fair housing rights, just wanted to say that the rights actually are older than 1968, but what happened at that time was because we really weren't doing a great job of it. So new act was passed, et cetera. So I encourage everybody to learn more. It's pretty interesting to learn more about our country's history. Also that the fair housing applies to all housing, rental as well as home ownership. And also just to make a note that there's a lot of community organizations that work together with our city and our housing authority, et cetera, trying to help folks find housing and be sustainable. The other thing I just note is that I really appreciate and like to see community engagement. We've seen a lot of that with the Bristol, Virginia landfill, and also some of the same folks, but certainly the skate park has gotten more interest than a lot of things that we've done in the past quite a few years. So it's great to have citizen engagement to be here and to talk with us and to share their ideas. So thank you.
One thing I've got is just to say thank you to Wes for, we're talking about the lights downtown. He got some guys to help me, and I appreciate that, and coordinated all that to have the lights put up on the poles downtown, the rest of the staff. But thank you.
I have just a few things. The downtown sound system that has been built with the help of Terry Napier and Believe in Bristol. I understand that boxes have been delivered, and so we're looking forward to that being put into place, and it won't be long now. The BCM, Birthplace of Country Music, a couple of things there. If you didn't go to the last Farm and Fun Time with the Mavericks at the Paramount, it was sold out. It was an exceptional show. A lot of people really enjoyed that. And Farm and Fun Time through the BCM continues to partner with public television. And there's some announcements coming forward very soon about another section of public television that we will be in syndication. The passes are selling very well for Rhythm and Roots. We're really looking forward to a great festival, September 9th, 10th, and 11th. If you haven't gotten your pass, please do. Explore Bristol, our destination marketing organization, has just done a tremendous job of getting the word out. I need to back up just a minute. The BCM was able to secure an 11-page spread in the Okra magazine. Okra magazine, if you're not familiar with it, is very much like Garden and Gun. So it's a prestigious magazine, and we had an 11-page full-color spread in that. But our data points with our marketing of our community through Explore Bristol has just been exceptional. Matt Bolas is doing a great job there. I have the opportunity to see what goes on with the Community Outreach Center, the Family Resource Center, and it's phenomenal. The work that they do, you can't even begin to imagine, and the students that they serve. Kay Ward has a passion. She not only delivers books, but she delivers food for students, some students that may experience food fragility, as well as popsicles and lots of good things throughout the summer months. So the new book bus is just wonderful, and the children, I know, will be just extremely excited. Thank you, Sheriff. Done a great job with the planning, and we look forward to working even more closely in the coming days. We've Sullivan Networks Partnership. It's amazing the different industrial properties that we have in our end of the county, but across Sullivan County. It's amazing the extreme infrastructure and the gigabit capabilities. Thank you to BTES. Thank you to BTES with the 10 gig community. And to Wes, thank you for all that you do with Public Works. Workforce development is on everyone's mind. We know that it's critical to our coming success, an eye out there. And so having said all of that, Bristol truly is a good place to live. Do we still have lots of work to do? Of course we do. But in this budget season, we're hopeful that we're going to be able to finance a lot of the ongoing work, but to also finance new projects to help complete or move our community forward. So with that, Mayor, thank you for letting me speak.
I'll be really brief. Dr. Tudor, I really appreciated all that you all did a couple weeks ago with showing us Viking Academy and seeing what's happening there, and your staff did a great job laying that out. And then the tour where the facility Mitch Walters donated looks fantastic, and I'm really excited about that. And it's a great example of public-private partnership and working with economic development. So I think you and the school system should be really pleased with that, and a big pat on the back for that. But I'm also really excited about this new head coach, so thank you.
That's the most important part of it. It's always good to look out in the audience and see our Sullivan County Commissioner, Mr. David Aker. Yeah, he's here quite often. And David, we really appreciate all the good work you're doing there for Sullivan County and looking after the citizens of Bristol. I'd just like to echo what Ms. Powers said. I mean, there's so many good things going on. And, I feel like the city of Bristol is a pace setter. We're leading the way in the communities in the Tri-Cities. And, if others are trying to get ahead of us, I don't think it's going to happen. So, we're just going to keep on doing what we're doing and avoid any distractions. The other day, we had, myself, Mr. Sora, and Matt Austin had the privilege to come over and speak to the government class, Mr. Cross's government class at Tennessee High. It was very rewarding and very encouraging to sit there and interact with some of those very young and talented individuals, knowing they're going to be great. We can go on, and the ones that's coming up behind us are going to do a fantastic job. So that was very rewarding. And with that, I'm going to say we're adjourned.
Every biker knows that on two wheels, their visibility is always better, which is great, until you see rivers and streams spoiled by stormwater